Hello and welcome everybody to the Harbor Commission May 2026 regular meeting. I'm Chair Adam Stanwyck and calling to order this meeting at 6:32 p.m. And with that, Mr. Lopez, can we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Cohen is absent. Commissioner Hymas?
Here.
Commissioner McCrae?
Here.
Commissioner Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Stebbin?
Here.
Chair Stanwyck?
Here. Thank you. Director Wiltshire, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yeah, Chair Stanwyck, we're actually going to remove item number 4, a lease agreement with Allied Voyage, Ocean Air. We need a little more time to work on that, so we're going to bring it back next month.
Great, thanks for that. So with that, after the consent calendar, we'll move directly to item number 5, omitting item number 4 for next week. Also, one other quick change to the agenda I want to announce is that in line with City Council, the way that they go through agenda items, they usually start with a staff presentation, then immediately after the staff presentation, they do public comment, and then they allow the council to ask questions and then deliberate. So with that structure, Harbor Commission, all the commissions are likely going to be following that. So we're just going to follow that order tonight, with the biggest change being the public comments are just going to follow the staff report. And with that, Mr. Lopez, do we have any general public comment this evening?
Chair Stanwyck, there are no hands raised and no speaker slips submitted for general public comment.
Great, thank you. Also, too, just want to acknowledge that we did have several written public comments that we received, so thank you, Mr. Lopez, for sending that. We had 5 for item number 5, the request for proposal, and 1 for item number 6, the cruise ship. So, yeah, thank you to those who submitted those online. We all received them and read them, so thank you. Moving on to the work group reports, I believe we do have a work group report from Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. Yes, the Strategic Planning Work Group met May 7th with Director Wiltshire down at the harbor, and we reviewed and discussed the waterfront's involvement in the city's strategic plan that was published in December 25. And we saw there's been a lot of thoughtful and hard work getting done by the staff on addressing the items that the City Council and City push towards the waterfront. We dug in deep on a couple items. You know, one of them that particularly piqued our interest was the permitting process, how the staff could help potential tenants and future tenants with the permitting process. And 2 things that stood out is there's an example of the Corazon Casino spot that you all came with a particular agreement. The name of it struck my mind that helped them get in there a little earlier and start the ball rolling there. What was that?
Yeah, as opposed to a full long-term lease agreement, we just had basically an operational license agreement that allowed to get in there right away, and so they can get in there and measure and work and all that stuff. They just can't conduct business until we get a formal lease. So it took what's usually a 3-month process and brought it down to a few weeks.
That was great. It was great to hear that and see that, and obviously every day counts. The staff is also offering just general guidance and support for current and future tenants to help with that process. And I know some of the other milestones that we talked about in future upcoming meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Do we have any other work groups that would like to report? All right, thank you. We move on to the consent calendar. Mr. Lopez, can you please read us the items on the consent calendar?
Yes, item 1, approval of the minutes. Recommendation the Harbor Commission waive further reading and approve the minutes from the regular meeting of April 16th, 2026. Item 2, proposed lease agreement with Santa Barbara Maritime Museum, Inc. Recommendation the Harbor Commission review and recommend City Council approval of a lease agreement with Santa Barbara Maritime Museum, Inc. at an initial base rent of $750 per month for the approximately 156 square feet of ground floor office space designated as 113 Harbor Way, Suite 105. And item 3, proposed lease agreement with Mystic Ocean Adventures. Recommendation the Harbor Commission review and recommend City Council approval of a lease agreement with Mystic Ocean Adventures at an initial base rent of $4,147 per month for the approximately 864 square feet of ground floor office space designated as 113 Harbor Way, Suite 108.
Great, thank you for that, Mr. Lopez. As this item is part of the consent calendar, we received all the staff reports in our packet, so we've all reviewed those. I do believe we do have a public comment on this item. With that, we could have our first public commenter on this.
Yes, Christine Healy.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say basically thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Christine Healy, Executive Director of Mystic Ocean Adventures. And I just wanted to share how incredibly excited we are to move forward with 113 Harbor Way Suite 108. Having our RFP accepted is a milestone for us, and we are thrilled to bring brand-new experiential learning center to Santa Barbara Harbor. Our goal is to bring the magic of what we do on Mystic Whaler right into the waterfront. The shoreside space will allow us to expand our educational mission, provide students and community members with immersive hands-on experiences in maritime arts, nautical history, and practical STEAM learning. We want this center to be a place where the community can connect deeply with the harbor, with the harbor's living history. We are also grateful for the opportunity we are also grateful for this opportunity and for the acceptance of our proposal. We are eager to get to work, collaborate with the Harbor Commission, and continue to be an active, positive fixture in the harbor. Thank you so much for your time tonight and your support.
Thank you, Mrs. Healy. All right, with that, I don't believe, do we have any public comments online for this item, number 1, 2, or 3 on the consent calendar?
Chair Stanwyck, there are no hands raised.
No hands raised, great. Okay, any questions from the commission on items number 1, 2, or 3 of the consent calendar? Okay, with no questions, a motion will be in order to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lopez, could we please have a vote on items number 1, 2, and 3 of the consent calendar?
Yes, and this is a motion by Commissioner McCray, seconded by Commissioner Nelson to approve the consent calendar. Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hymas?
Yes.
Commissioner McCray?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson? Yes. Commissioner Stedman?
Aye.
And Chair Stanwyck?
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Cohen absent.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on now from the consent calendar to new business. As we talked about during the changes to the agenda portion, we are omitting item number 4, as that will be pushed to next month. We move on to item number 5, the review tenant selection for commercial space located at 11 Garden Street. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation for item number 5 of new business for us?
Yes, this is item 5, recommendation that Harbor Commission review the result of the request for proposal and recommend that City Council negotiate a lease with Santa Barbara Gelato Garden for the approximately 400 square foot building located at 11 Garden Street.
Great, thank you. Turn it over to the waterfront.
Good evening, Chair Stanwyck, Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Cesar Barrios. I am the Waterfront Business Manager. And today I will provide a review of the request for proposal for lease space located at 11 Garden Street. And just to begin, here's an image of the main entrance to this building, which is a historical building. For some background, for several decades, this location served as a Chamber of Commerce visitor center, which permanently closed its doors in September of 2025 to focus primarily on their new visitor center on Lower State Street. The building is located right at the intersection of Cabrillo Boulevard and Garden Street, right in the corner. As you can see right here on this section right there in the very corner, right across the Chase Palm Park park and parking lot. So as part of our leasing practices, whenever a space becomes available, it doesn't happen often, we initiate a request for proposal, or RFP as we refer to it in short, to select a new tenant for the space. In this particular situation, we issued the RFP on March 11th, and that process lasted through April 13th, when the RFP closed. To ensure exposure, we marketed the available space through the city and waterfront websites, LoopNet and Craigslist, in addition to flyers posted at the location, as well as the marina gates throughout the harbor. Additionally, we reached out to individuals who were in the interested parties list. It's a list of individuals that normally contact us in advance whenever there's interest in a property within the waterfront. So as of April 13th, the deadline, we received a total of 6 proposals. Then on May 7th, the Harbor Commission's RFP work group met with Waterfront staff to review all 6 proposals and discuss the next steps in the selection process. Then, following comprehensive evaluation by the RFP work group and staff, it was determined that 3 of the 6 proposals would advance to be reviewed in detail and be assessed by the RFP review panel, which consisted of five individuals. And here we have the 3 proposals for that space that were selected to be reviewed, and that was Santa Barbara Gelato Garden, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, and American Riviera Bike Tours and Rentals. All proposals were evaluated by the same criteria, with Santa Barbara Gelato Garden receiving the highest ranking from 4 of the 5 RFP review panel members. In addition, the leading proposal was reviewed by the Waterfront Director, who recommended it be moved forward to the Harbor Commission for a recommendation for council to do negotiations, and the reason we're here today. So now we'll provide a brief overview of the selected proposal and the key points and criteria used to make the selection, including their business plan, management application information, and the financial information. As part of their business plan, the Santa Barbara Gelato Garden is described per their RFP as a carefully designed retail concept aimed at serving visitors and enriching the Santa Barbara waterfront with premium, locally inspired food, drinks, and merchandise. Their business concept combines sales of handcrafted gelato, locally sourced grab-and-go food options, and Santa Barbara branded retail products. The design highlights a garden theme with abundant greenery, flowers, warm materials, and a welcoming indoor-outdoor visual flow. And here you have a conceptual image of how the business would be presented. This is also part of their RFP. You can see there's their goal is to add flowers and greenery throughout the space to make it very welcoming to our visitors. And here's another conceptual image of the interior space as well, as a reference. Okay, in regards to management, the proposal provided the information as requested, describing Omar Kashan and Logan Goldberg as founders and operating partners. Mr. Kashan has extensive experience in hospitality operations, including the Elwood Restaurant at Goleta Beach, Moby Dick Restaurant on Stearns Wharf, where he is the current operating partner. And in addition, he is the founder and operator of Lily's Donuts and Pops with 2 locations in Santa Barbara. Mr. Logan Goldberg also has extensive experience of 20-plus years in hospitality management and ownership, as well as large-scale event management, such as Earth Day, Solstice, and Avocado Festivals, where he was the director of operations for 2010 to 2014 approximately. In addition, just as Mr. Kashan, Mr. Goldberg is the operating partner at Moby Dick Restaurant on Stearns Wharf. In regards to financial information, detailed credit references will be provided upon acceptance of the proposal. Usually, we get a detailed report once we start the negotiations. And we'll note it that there's no litigation current or pending either with city or a third party. And they have provided their financial validity of their ability to fulfill their obligations as a new tenant of the waterfront and city of Santa Barbara. If the Harbor Commission agrees with the Waterfront Department's recommendation, staff will begin negotiations with Santa Barbara Gelato Garden and bring a draft lease agreement back to the Harbor Commission for review and recommendation to City Council. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Vargas. So with that, we will hold off on questions first. We'll move to public comment following the staff proposal. And I believe we have several public comments for this item, item number 5.
Chair Stano, we have 3 speaker slips submitted and 1 hand raised in online.
Okay, great. Let's take the online one first.
Sully Israel, you are unmuted and can go ahead.
Thank you, Sully. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to confirm. I just have a quick comment today. Thank you for taking my comment online. I'm speaking solely as an individual, not representing anything else. And I'd like to speak in favor of the proposal to have American Riviera bike tours and rentals at the 11 Garden Street location. I understand that there are other proposals as well. But in my opinion, having this location be an active center, having it be the nexus of a tours is a very positive thing for the city. There are numerous tour operators throughout the city that operate in different ways, whether it's the Land Shark or whether it's walking tours, etc. But none of them have a solid storefront location. And I think what tours can provide that a standalone food vendor cannot is the ability to show people around the entirety of the city and give them recommendations for many places to visit, whether it's the Harbor or State Street or the Mission, which American Riviera Bike Tours actually already does. And so I think it's sort of this building, as it was the visitor center, was sort of a front door and a place that recommended other businesses to people through a wall of flyers that they had. And so sort of continuing that legacy through a bike tour business, I think, is a much bigger asset to the community than another gelato shop. Not that I have anything against ice cream, but we have a lot of them. And so that's just my 2 cents, and thank you for taking my comment.
Great. Thank you for the public comment. Okay. We can move on to the in-person public comments. Everybody who submitted a speaker slip.
Yes, Chair Stanwyck, first we have Mike Suding, and then it'll be Jeff Ross, and then finally Brent Holland. So Mike Suding is up first.
Good evening, Mr. Suding. Yeah, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, good evening. My name is Mike Suding, and I was born and raised about a mile from here, and I've lived here over 55 years. And I'm the owner of American Riviera Bike Tours and Rentals. I'm asking you today to allow me to rent the Larco building on Garden Street instead of the current recommendation. I strongly believe that guiding visitors on a 2.5-hour bike tour of the waterfront and the city is more beneficial as a whole than adding to the already well-served snack options. The travel trend nowadays is to have more experiences and less things. I've guided tours for 780 visitors from all over the world in the last 2.5 years since I retired. And we ride 14 miles along the waterfront and through the downtown to the courthouse and the Mission. And I stop 15 places and tell them stories about the history and the fun facts of Santa Barbara. I give them suggestions on additional activities like sunset cruises on the Double Dolphin or Sunset Kid, etc., kayaking, whale watching, and the Maritime Museum where they can see the Lockheed F1 scaled model that I talk about. And as a result, they often stay longer or come back again. Your RFP asked for a visitor serving business, and of the top 3 proposals, I think my business is the best way to serve Santa Barbara visitors. I'm proud to say that all 350 of our Google reviews are 5 stars, which is really rare, and all 100 reviews on our TripAdvisor are 5 stars. And I'll read you one example. It's from Donna Blum and her husband from San Diego. They said, "We did this tour on the day that we arrived in Santa Barbara, and I'm so glad that we did. Mike was great. It's a great way to get an overview of Santa Barbara and decide where to go back and spend more time. Mike's a local and gave us suggestions for activities. We tried many on his list, and he was right on. It was a great, great adventure. I'm certainly honored by reviews like this and proud of them. In conclusion, I'm asking you to please look at the bigger picture here, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Suding.
Next, we have Jeff Ross.
Mr. Ross, yep, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, I'm a retired property management company owner, and I'm always amazed at that location. And for the life of me, I don't know how the city gave that up from being a chamber of commerce, but that's another story. I recently came back from Europe, and I visited like 5 countries, and every place that I would dock, I've made it a point to get on a rental bike. And the only time that I wasn't able to was that it was just, there's no spots. It was just very, very popular. I believe that building will be much better served with a tour company that lets Mike take people out and about and show the community, what we have to offer. So what I think happened here is I think the board or who's ever responsible was wearing their landlord hat instead of their property management hat. And the property management aspect of it will clearly show that a tour company would be much better served there. Probably what happened, you did the bike rentals, they got the racks over here, got another place around the corner, ice cream, the same thing down the harbor wharf. Over here is another ice cream place. So I'm sure that you guys probably did that. But I'm here to tell you that by putting a tour company in there, the community will be much better served, and I think you can't go wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Then our final speaker slip is Brent Holland.
Good evening, Mr. Holland. You have 3 minutes.
I'm a longtime resident of Santa Barbara and a friend of Mike, and I want to recommend that he be granted the lease at the Larco building. Over 300 reviews on Google, 5 stars. Is a very difficult thing to do if you're running a business and you deal with social media. And the reason for that is because of Mike. Mike has an encyclopedic knowledge of the city of Santa Barbara, and he's willing to share that with people gladly. And he makes people comfortable. People like Mike, and comfortable people in Santa Barbara want to stay in Santa Barbara and see the city. So if you read the comments that were submitted by way of your website, one came by way of a Belgian gentleman who visited this area recently, and he also posted a video. And he described his experience with Mike, and at the very end he said, I wouldn't come back if it weren't for the tour I took with Mike, which is an incredible statement for me. I don't think anyone who tastes gelato in Santa Barbara is going to come back to Santa Barbara for another taste of gelato. Certainly no one from Europe, and certainly no one from Italy. I would encourage all of you to take the tour. Go there anonymously, whether you ride a bike or not. You don't have to ride. His electric bikes will carry you. And experience the tour. And when you're done with the tour, go to McConnell's. You can walk to McConnell's and have an ice cream or a gelato. And during that time, think about the best served tenant for that space. I believe it's Mike Suding and American Riviera Bike Rental. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Okay, do we have any other public speakers slips submitted or any other commenters online right now?
Chair Sandwick, there are no other speaker slips submitted for this item and no hands raised.
Great, thank you. Okay, we can now move on to questions from the commission. And is there any commissioners with questions for Mr. Barrios on the waterfront? Commissioner Hymas.
Thank you. Mr. Barrios, I'm just curious if there's any notes from the other two businesses that were reviewed as well, and why they weren't selected.
Just starting with Commissioner Hymas, we do have scoring sheets per each individual business that was submitted by each panelist. So we do have that. We have that information. Since the process is still pending, it's not subject to public record at this time. But we do everything. The selection process was done, not just, we talk about voting 4 out of 5, but there was actually scoring involved as well with a numerical number for each individual business based on business plan, financials, and what's best by this location considered by the panelists.
Oh, yeah, follow-up question.
And separately, I'm curious, how many other businesses within the waterfront sell ice cream or something similar to ice cream, gelato, and stuff like that?
From our tenants, we have one ice cream shop up on the wharf, and then we have one tenant in the harbor that is within their lease are able to sell ice cream, like fresh servings of ice cream, but they've chosen not to do that as part of their business. So currently only one. I imagine there are others on Lower State Street, besides the package ice cream or popsicles and such that you can find within the area.
Commissioner Anderson?
My question, I got a few questions. I guess the first one is, how was, regarding the bike option, how was storage considered? Where would they be keeping their, was that discussed on where they'd be keeping their bikes and rentals?
It was not discussed. We had as part of their plan, without going into too much detail, since again, it's not completely public record, the bikes would go inside the facility, inside the building. Because the adjacent parking lot is not part of the lease agreement for the building, solely just the building. It does not include the sidewalk either.
I guess I'd be concerned on how many would fit into a 400 square foot building. And then was there any comparison done? I know there's one on State Street, and then there's another one kind of a little deeper into the funk zone, maybe off Mason. Is there any sort of comparison on how those do we know, are they meeting the demand locally? Do we know if they're sold out on the weekends? Do we have any ideas on that?
Commissioner Anderson, I wouldn't want to speculate. I don't have that information. I am aware that there are several tour companies within the funk zone and other parts of State Street that provide either bike rentals or tours, including some applicants that already have a brick and mortar business in the city of Santa Barbara.
Thank you. And then for the gelato option, is there a change of use, or is there a different permit required to do that? I saw the permitting forecast is only 1 to 2 months, which would be fantastic, but I'm just curious what would be required to get it and to be able to serve food.
From the description of the proposal, this would not require a change of use.
All right, and my last one, do you know, are they considering selling alcohol there?
No, they're not.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, well, thank you for the request for a proposal work group and all the work that was done on this. I know there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of analysis done. One question I have was, and just kind of echoing some of the comments we received, but I guess the toss-up was really between a tour and a food operator. Just kind of want to know the harbor, or the waterfront's, I guess, opinion on kind of between the two, or just kind of how those two options were weighed.
Chair Stanwyck, so I mean, an RFP is a competitive process, so we have a evaluation criteria. I don't think this is like saying that any other business wouldn't succeed there. Some of your fellow colleagues, so we have an RFP review committee of which some of the harbor commissioners are on. I get kind of last look at it, and it was pretty unanimous in this case, based for a number of reasons. The revenue upside to the department is a big part of it. I mean, we're an enterprise fund. We're looking for revenue opportunities. The revenue profiles for the bike business were relatively low compared to some projections that seemed reasonable for the food service business model. I don't disagree that it would be a great location for either of those businesses. There are bike rental businesses and tours. The tour operator who spoke today has a brick and mortar store not that far away from where this location is. So I don't know the demand or we haven't analyzed it to that level, but that service exists, so, within a couple block radius of this building already. Not to say that ice cream doesn't, but at the end of the day, it's a competitive process, and it was fairly unanimous based on the 5 individuals, 3 of them being harbor commissioners, staff, and myself, to select this tenant. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to pick somebody and move forward with it.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Stedman?
Yes. Thank you very much. Caesar, the proposed terms in a negotiating process would be equally offered to either a bike or a bike business, tour business, and a restaurant. Is that correct?
Vice Chair Stedman, that is correct, yes. And in there's the base rent aspect of this, which already discussed within the RFP, but depending on the type of business and the type of sales, the percentage rent back to the waterfront department will be different depending on what the services are being provided.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, Mr. Lopez, can you please reread the recommendation for us for item number 5, new business?
Yes, recommendation that Harbor Commission review the result of the request for proposal and recommend that City Council negotiate a lease with Santa Barbara Gelato Garden for the approximately 400 square foot building located at 11 Garden Street.
Great, thank you. So just to clarify, we are, the result of this would be move forward to City Council for this proposal. I know this is a tough decision because we have a lot of different, several different options. Thank you for the operator who submitted the proposal. I know it was a detailed staff report that outlined, everything between the food options, the revenue breakdown, kind of the result it would have in the community. So thank you guys for providing that proposal for us to review. But at this time, we do have to make a decision, and a motion would be in order for item number 5.
I'll make a motion to recommend that City Council negotiate a lease with Santa Barbara Gelato Garden for the approximately 400 square foot building located at 11 Garden.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Stedman and a second by Commissioner Nelson. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Okay, Mr. Lopez, could we please have a vote on item number 5 of new business, review tenant selection for commercial space located at 11 Garden?
Yes, and this is a motion by Vice Chair Stedman, seconded by Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Hymas?
Yes.
Commissioner McCray?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Stanwyck?
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Cohen absent.
Thank you. Okay. We will move on now to item number 6, the annual cruise ship program review. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation for item number 6?
Yes, this is item 6, recommendation that Harbor Commission receive a presentation from staff reviewing the 2025-2026 cruise ship program, including data on visiting vessels, revenues, and compliance with cruise ship program improvements.
Thank you. Turn over to the waterfront and Ms. Rodriguez.
Hello and good evening, Harbor Commission and members of the public. I am Angela Rodriguez, Administrative Analyst for the Waterfront Department, and I also manage the cruise ship program. Tonight, I will be presenting on the cruise ship program and the efforts over the past fiscal year as we continue to implement the newly adopted cruise ship program improvements adopted by Harbor Commission and City Council in April 2024. So let's begin. The recommendation for tonight's presentation is that Harbor Commission receive a presentation from staff reviewing the 2025 and 2026 cruise ship program, including data on visiting vessels, revenues, and compliance with recently adopted cruise ship program improvements. As a quick refresher, here's a little history and background information about the cruise ship program in Santa Barbara. The program started in 2002 and is managed by the Waterfront Department. Since the start of the program, the Waterfront Department has hosted over 260 cruise ship visits. The Waterfront Department schedules the cruise ship visits during non-peak business seasons and therefore does not schedule any cruise ship visits from Memorial Weekend through Labor Day. This is meant to avoid the busier summer months when the city is more heavily impacted by tourists that arrive by means other than a cruise ship. Additionally, cruise ship calls are scheduled anywhere between 12 to 36 months in advance. The cruise ship program website is shown on the screen, but you can also locate the website by searching for City of Santa Barbara Cruise Ship Program. On the website, you'll find the cruise ship database, the current cruise ship schedule for the year, as well as contact information for various cruise lines that visit Santa Barbara. And additionally, there's new information on there regarding the Blue Whales and Blue Skies program, which I'll discuss later in this presentation. Now here's a little insight on how the cruise ship program works on a day-to-day basis when a cruise ship is in port. The ship anchors approximately 1 mile offshore and tenders ferry passengers to Santa Barbara Landing. Santa Barbara Landing is an approved facility through the U.S. Coast Guard and creates a secure area for the passengers to disembark. Once the passengers are landside, they are greeted by volunteer ambassadors from the Chamber of Commerce who provide them with a wealth of knowledge about the city, along with information about where they can eat, shop, and see more famous attractions that Santa Barbara has to offer. Some guests do have prearranged tours, but many other guests are happy to tour the city on their own by walking or taking advantage of the shuttles provided by the Waterfront Department. In addition to the shuttles that take guests into the city, the Waterfront Department also provides security and, for larger ships, additional restrooms. To run the cruise ship program, the Waterfront Department charges $15 per passenger. The Waterfront Department receives those funds regardless if the passenger gets off the ship or not. So here's a quick recap of the history of the cruise ship program with the cruise ship subcommittee as well that I'll be discussing tonight, and also going over the improvements that were developed through the cruise ship subcommittee process. So the subcommittee process started after COVID in 2022 when the community began returning to tourism and Santa Barbara was due to begin receiving cruise ship visits. Before the first post-COVID cruise ship visit, the Waterfront Department presented a cruise ship program review to Harbor Commission and to City Council. After the cruise ship visits returned, there was an increased public interest regarding the public impacts of the cruise ships to Santa Barbara. This was largely due to the increased number of cruise ship visits scheduled in 2022, which was 30 cruise ship visits. The increased public interest prompted Harbor Commission to form the cruise ship subcommittee on April 21st, 2022. As a result, the cruise ship subcommittee embarked on a 2-year process to discuss environmental, social, and economic impacts of the cruise ship program in Santa Barbara. The meetings were well-attended public meetings with presentations from Air Pollution Control District, Cruise Lines International Association, also known as CLIA, U.S. Coast Guard, Santa Barbara Channel Keeper, Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary, Visit Santa Barbara, and the Chamber of Commerce. At the end of the 2-year process, Harbor Commission and City Council heard presentations from the Waterfront Department and voted to adopt 20 cruise ship program improvements. Before I go into detail about the adopted cruise ship program improvements, here's a quick look at the number of cruise ship visits each year from 2012 and scheduled through 2029. I'll go ahead and leave that on the screen for a moment before I move on. Okay. One other detail before I get into the recommendations was that I wanted to highlight the new partnership that's forming between the Waterfront Department and the Blue Whales Blue Skies program, as the department is actively working to become a program ambassador. The Waterfront Department has recently begun meeting with representatives from the Blue Whales and Blue Skies to determine ways to work together in promoting the program to cruise ships that visit Santa Barbara. The Waterfront Department will begin adding information about the program to the Letter of Understanding and Captain's Declaration to help inform cruise ships about the program and to provide information on how they can enroll in the voluntary program, which gives them public recognition for their percent of cooperation as they slow to 10 knots or less while in the vessel speed reduction zone during the program months, which are April 1st through December 31st. Also here is Sean Hastings, who will talk a little bit about the program. He's going to do some public comment as well. And he can provide questions or answers to the questions as well. So now I'll get into the 20 recommendations for the program improvements. Starting with number 1, it was to request that all ships visiting Santa Barbara be equipped with advanced wastewater treatment systems. This was implemented as all cruise ships that visited in the fall 2025 and spring 2026 were equipped with advanced wastewater treatment systems. All ships on the schedule going forward are also equipped with this technology. Recommendation number 2 was to continue the local requirement of no discharges of any kind within 12 nautical miles of Santa Barbara. This request was continued, and it was also added to the Letter of Understanding, which is now sent out to the ships during the reservation process, which happens 2 to 3 years before the visit. Recommendation number 3 was regarding vessel speed and ensuring cruise ships slow to 10 knots or less within the Santa Barbara vessel speed reduction zone between April 1st and December 31st. These were already requirements for vessels to slow the speed when in Santa Barbara Channel. However, the requirement language now aligns with the Blue Whales and Blue Skies program and includes the recommended times of the year when the vessel should slow. And then as I just spoke about in the last slide, we're also going to be including that information going forward for the ships to have in front of them when they sign the Letter of Understanding. Recommendation number 4 was regarding scheduling, which was formalized as an existing practice of not scheduling any cruise ship visits from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day or on any weekends throughout the year. Recommendation number 5 is also a continued practice, which recommends that the Waterfront Department work with local businesses who offer services and excursions to cruise ship passengers. Although this practice is continued, it is becoming more difficult to establish new connections between local businesses and cruise ships with so few visits. Recommendation number 6 and 7, also regarding the establishment of partnerships between cruise ships and local seafood suppliers, as well as educational institutions, has been difficult to implement, as there are currently not enough visiting cruise ships to effectively set up this program. However, we are working to coordinate with Carnival Corporation lines to host Santa Barbara City College students aboard the Holland America and Princess ships that are due this fall. Recommendations 8, 9, and 10 are all regarding cruise ship fees. The Waterfront Department increased the per passenger fee, the minimum passenger fee, and the cancellation fees, and in fiscal year 2023, making the new fees go into effect on July 1st, 2023. However, during the 2-year process of the subcommittee, the Waterfront Department also increased the cancellation fees for larger ships, which became effective last year on July 1st, 2025. Recommendation number 11 regarding the approval process is an existing practice that is being continued. The letter of understanding is now sent to the ship during the approval process 2 to 3 years in advance of the visit. Recommendation number 12, which was to establish a publicly available database regarding cruise ship statistics and technologies. The cruise ship database is available on the cruise ship website for public review, and it is the intent of the Waterfront Department to continue to update and add to the database each season. And as additional information becomes available, it will also be updated. Recommendation number 13 was to ensure that there would be periodic reviews of the cruise ship program, which is what brings me here tonight to discuss the program in front of you all. Recommendation number 14 was to evaluate the need for a licensed ship pilot to assist visiting cruise ships. This was not implemented as staff worked with U.S. Coast Guard to evaluate the need for licensed pilots aboard ships and determined it was not necessary in the Santa Barbara Channel. Recommendation number 15 was to request ships visiting Santa Barbara to consider at-air emissions control systems when such technologies become feasible. This recommendation is difficult to implement as it is not a measurable metric, and it would be difficult to implement going forward once we do hit the cap of 20. Recommendation number 16 was to establish a limit of 20 cruise ship visits per year. This recommendation has been implemented, and there are less than 20 cruise ship visits scheduled in 2026 through 2029. Recommendation 17 was to prioritize cruise ships without scrubber technology or with closed-loop scrubber technology. This has not been implemented as there has not been a need to prioritize ships while under the 20 cruise ships per limit. However, this would also be difficult to prioritize as it would be the preference of the Waterfront Department to defer this to regulatory agencies that govern when various technologies can and can't be used. Recommendation 18 was to prioritize cruise ships with plug-in shore connectivity. Similar to the scrubber recommendation, this has also not been implemented, and there has not been a need to prioritize ships while under the 20 ship capacity. However, this recommendation would also be difficult to prioritize, and again, would be the Waterfront Department's preference to defer to regulatory agencies. Recommendation 19 was to prioritize cruise ships with exemplary environmental compliance records. The Waterfront Department has not implemented this recommendation while still being under the cap, as there has not been a need to prioritize ships yet. However, this recommendation will likely require more evaluation. Last, recommendation 20 was to maintain the cruise ship work group. However, this has been dissolved by the Harbor Commission to handle these discussions at the Harbor Commission level. So now I'm going to click on the database here so you guys can see some of the changes over the years and then also the upcoming ships on the next tab here. I can click through both of them. And then after this, I'm available for questions if anyone has questions about the program.
Great. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Rodriguez.
We also have Sean Hastings here who has information about the Blue Whales, Blue Skies program, if you guys have any questions about that.
Okay, great. This is the conclusion of the presentation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
If Mr. Hastings would like to speak now, it would be a good time.
Sure.
You can just kind of, to add on to our presentation.
Sure, I'd be happy
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Ms. Rodriguez. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, thank you. Sean Hastings, I'm with the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. Good evening, Harbor Commissioners and staff. real exciting opportunity to work together here on slowing vessels down in our region. We've been asking vessels, large ocean-going carriers, for over 20 years to slow down to 10 knots to reduce the risk of fatal ship strikes, reduce air pollution, and reduce ocean noise. To be honest, the program was not very successful the first 5 years. And so in 2014, working with the Santa Barbara Air Pollution Control District, Ventura County Air Pollution Control District, and today, all 5 National Marine Sanctuaries off California and all air districts from San Diego to northern Sonoma County, we created the Blue Whales and Blue Skies Incentive Program. We offer, as staff mentioned, positive public recognition for vessels that slow to 10 knots in the vessel speed reduction zones. And I'm pleased to report in 2025, we had an 85% cooperation rate, which means every mile traveled within the vessel speed reduction zone, which includes last year included all 5 National Marine Sanctuaries, was traveled at 10 knots. And this reduced the risk of fatal ship strikes by 40%, reduced over 1,000 tons of nitrogen oxides, tens of thousands of tons of greenhouse gases, and that means better air quality for all coastal Californians. In 2026, after years of urging by the cruise ship industry, we added their eligibility to enroll in the Blue Whales, Blue Skies program. To date, it was the large container ships that ply our channel on their way to Port Hueneme and the ports of LA and Long Beach, car carriers, bulkers, and tankers. Cruise lines are now eligible to enroll. Again, this is a voluntary program, and that's when it sparked the idea to work with the city and your cruise ship program and encourage ships, cruise lines to join Blue Whales, Blue Skies. In doing so, comply with the city's program and, again, reduce the risk of ship strikes and reduce air pollution on our communities. I'm pleased to report that we already have 2 cruise lines that have enrolled this year. The vessel speed reduction zone, following Assembly Bill 14, introduced by Assembly Member Greg Hart, passed in the last legislature and expanded our program statewide from the Mexican border to the Oregon border and approximately 55 nautical miles offshore. So by working together, we're going to, we hope, enhance the city's program, working directly with the captains who have to comply with your direction to slow to 10 knots, as well as meet the parameters of the Blue Whales, Blue Skies program. And something we've been discussing with Ms. Rodriguez is the city can join our program as what we call an ambassador. Because you work directly with the cruise ship lines, you can amplify our program, and in turn, we can recognize the city as well as the cruise lines that comply and slow to 10 knots. The other thing that we can offer is we track every ship, every mile, every day off the entire coast of California. And we'd like to offer our reporting services to you, to the commission, and to the harbor staff, that we can tell you whether your cruise lines that sign up are complying. Detailed reports, and in addition, we all get to celebrate the environmental benefits of safer whales and cleaner air. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or clarify anything about the program, and really excited to move forward working together.
Great, thanks for the comments, Mr. Hastings. Okay, before we move to questions from the commission, do we have any public comments online or speaker slips that were submitted, Mr. Lopez?
Chair Stanwyck, we do have 1 speaker slip submitted, Jamie Diamond, and currently no hands raised.
Great, thanks. Good evening, Ms. Diamond. Yep, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. I am Jamie Diamond, CEO at Santa Barbara Landing, the facility that receives our cruise ships throughout the year, and just wanted to make myself available for questions and let you know we're really pleased with how the program has been going. We've been working to increase engagement with other ships. I know part of the conversation was maybe more boutique, there was a nod to that of looking at more boutique style cruise ships that weren't as large. I have done a fair amount of outreach over the last year to different cruise lines. We are getting, I believe, at least 1 new line this next season, which is pretty exciting. They captain for their fleet came to visit and tour the facility to understand the operation ahead of time, which I greatly appreciated, and he liked that opportunity to be able to understand the facility they would be coming to. But also, he came several days prior, stayed in Santa Barbara, got to know the area, went to the restaurants, walked State Street, walked the waterfront. So I'm really excited for that new partnership. And yeah, that's it. Just make myself available for any questions.
Great, thank you, Ms. Diamond. Okay, with that, we can move on to questions from the commission. So we have a question from Vice Chair Stedman.
Thank you, Chair Stanwyck. So I'm going to ask a question first to Sean Hastings. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then I'll have some questions for you, Angela. Recently, it might have been today in Ed Hat, there was an article about tracking gray whales based on the technology provided by the Benioff Laboratory at UCSB. Is that incorporated in your system?
So we work, the Benioff Ocean Science Laboratory is a partner in the Blue Whales, Blue Skies effort. In fact, I was taking a little credit for providing reports that they produce for us in part of our partnership and make them available to you. The article that you're referencing today is a program they just launched this week in San Francisco Bay, where gray whales have been spending a lot more time. And there, they're using infrared camera systems on Angel Island in partnership with the U.S. Coast Guard, as well as one of the ferries has a mounted camera system. And then with when whales are present, notices are sent to ships entering and exiting the bay. So we are very aware of this technology. We have considered it, and we are working with some container lines directly to see if they're interested to carry this technology on their ships. So it's not something that's directly involved in the Blue Whales, Blue Skies effort, but we're very aware of this new technology and believe it would complement a captain's awareness when they're on the water, what's in front of them, especially at night.
Right, because it relies on the heat signatures of the whales themselves, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And so for Angela, do we have an appreciable cancellation rate in the program?
We do get some cancellations, but most of them happen further out, so still in the 2 to 3 year process when they're kind of booking and finalizing their schedules. But getting closer when it's harder to recoup those, we do get some here and there, and also for weather events.
And you left one of those graphs on for an extra couple of seconds, right? Showing the obvious dip in visits.
Would you
what
like
do
me
you
to-
attribute that to?
I can go back to that there.
You can go back to
Let's
it.
see.
I'm interested in it because that, Commissioner Anderson and I were on that subcommittee, and it was quite an intense process. But what do you think the main contributor is to the difference?
I think part of it was also some hesitation to schedule further out when they weren't sure what was going to happen through the 2 year process of us going through, the policy to see what would change. As we've, finalized the policy and gone forward, we're still working on kind of rebuilding that relationship with the cruise lines, but I think it does have a little bit to do with that.
Right.
Yeah, Commissioner Stedman, just to add on that, and we've talked with CLIA, Cruise Lines International, and the agencies that we work with, and obviously they were very involved in that 2 year process. We're reviewing cruise ships. It's a big business. They were small compared to their operations, and so they plan very, very far in advance. And so they were fairly clear that they did not feel that there was a level of business certainty if we were going to kind of be re-litigating it or re-evaluating this every year. So I think if we did want to get kind of closer to that cap or reestablish that business relationship, I think something as simple as signaling to the industry that At minimum, we wouldn't cancel any ships that have been booked. I think that would go a long way to allow them to essentially book further out in advance, even if we were to change our policies or our direction on what our future with cruise ships would be. And so I think that could be a good step if Harbor Commission or Council showed interest in at least kind of creating that business certainty.
Yeah, I appreciate that suggestion. And just a segue, you know, during that intense subcommittee process, the environmentalists were armed and loaded every single time we had a noticed public meeting. Have any of them contacted you to check on compliance by these ships?
Santa Barbara Channel Keeper has contacted me throughout the process since then. I haven't heard from them leading up to this presentation, but I do hear from them somewhat regularly.
Informally.
And to add to that, we provide kind of a written summary to council each year, just kind of summarizing this exactly. And so I know that they have also forwarded that to Channel Keeper and some of those other agencies and nonprofits that are interested in this sort of stuff.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hymas.
Thank you. This is a question for Mr. Hastings. Do we know how many whales have been struck by cruise ships, or is that data not available yet?
There is, so my parent agency, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, does release annually a report on the number of stranded whales, ships that are in ship-struck whales and tangled whales. I believe the last report may be 2024, and they're still compiling 2025. So I don't know off the top of my head how many were, here's the tricky thing. If a ship comes into a port with a whale on its bow, clearly it's been hit. When we find whales that wash up on beaches or in the channel floating, it's hard to say what type of ship hit them. So sort of a long-winded way to say, no, I don't know exactly how many ships, cruise ships have hit whales, or how many whales have been hit by any of the particular sectors. But we do have general numbers. The thing to understand about ship strike and this effort to slow ships down, well, there's two avenues here. One is you separate ships and whales. That's clearly the best thing to do. And we've done that in the Santa Barbara Channel. We have adjusted the shipping lanes. We've extended them to deeper water, created no shipping areas around the islands. Where you can't separate ships and whales, you slow them down, and that reduces risk. So it may not, it doesn't lead to how many whales were saved. We would love to all know that. But what we do know is we are reducing the risk of a fatal ship strike. And that's something in the nuance of the statistic of a 40% reduction in ship strike last year. Had the ships not slowed down, then we would have a 40% higher likelihood of ship strike. So this is making a measurable difference. My agency employs vessel speed reduction nationwide. It's regulated on the East Coast, and on the West Coast it's been voluntary for 20 years, largely because we have such high cooperation.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the Blue Whales, Blue Skies program, and I would love to see the waterfront be a partner with that. I guess this might be a question for you as well, but I would love to know when cruise ships anchor in Santa Barbara, what does the bottom look like? Is it a sandy bottom? Do we know?
Commissioner Jaimez, they are provided specific anchor coordinates, and they anchor in the same spot every time, and it is a largely sandy bottom.
Okay. Do we know the depth?
Offhand, I don't. I'm guessing 80 feet, 100 feet.
Okay. Is that deep enough for sealgrass? Or eelgrass, sorry. Anybody? I don't sorry.
So as the person who works for NOAA, not as a NOAA scientist, but policy person, sure, I don't know if there's eelgrass directly in the anchorage areas. I don't believe so. The eelgrass habitat does extend out to 80 to 100 feet depth around some parts of the islands, which is more the Channel Island Sanctuary domain. But I do concur. I think it's 1 mile is about 80 to 100 feet. Merritt probably knows, Commissioner McCrae probably knows better than anybody. But I don't believe it's eelgrass habitat in that area.
Thank you. I guess I'm just asking because I would love to see in the future the revenue that Waterfront's getting from cruise ships, even just a small percentage, go to ocean restoration within our waterfront, whether that's Tanoa or Channel Keeper, any of the local nonprofits. I think that it would be a good principle to implement whatever revenue we're getting from tourism, especially cruise ships, if that can go back into our waterfront to make it look prettier and kind of restore it to what it's supposed to look like, that would be great. I guess that's more of a recommendation, not a question, but I think that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. The first one, let's get Sean back up here. I like him bouncing up and down like that. Assemblymember Hart's bill. I mean, I'm approaching your presentation, the recommendation that we become ambassadors and want to support it. But can we go the next step? Is not only should we support it, why can't we require those who come to our harbor to use it? I mean, to be part of it. And so what does the bill do in terms of enforcement or compliance? Would it be appropriate, given the statute, for us to have that conversation with all of our cruise ships that come in?
So Assembly Bill 14 expanded the voluntary Blue Whales, Blue Skies effort.
So it's voluntary.
It is voluntary. I actually am very impressed with the captain's declaration that the city has implemented that is compulsory. They have to comply with your parameters of your cruise ship program. And so the captain, the company, in my understanding is, the company agrees years in advance to follow the city guidelines, and the captain himself signs a declaration. So I would say your program actually has more teeth than our program.
So do you know whether or not within that declaration so I'm saying right now probably that declaration doesn't include the reduction in speed requirement, does it?
It does.
It does?
It does.
Oh, great.
Yes. And the extension of the becoming an ambassador to Blue Whales, Blue Skies is, again, it's the ability of the city to reach out to all the cruise lines that visit the city to say, we support Blue Whales, Blue Skies, and we'd like you to join that program.
Right.
And again, you're going to get higher compliance, I believe, because you're going to get compliance. We get cooperation. But working together is where, and working with the cruise industry, which is, this is the beautiful thing about this program. We work together to not just comply, but cooperate with ship strike risk reduction and air pollution reduction. Right. And we're really, really heartened to hear that 2 cruise lines have enrolled in our program. Right. And I might add that if those cruise lines are not visiting the city yet, because in our program, maybe there's some conversations that can happen there.
And I listened to one of your presentations at a Sanctuary Advisory Council meeting, and you were talking about the container ships. And slowly but surely, it's not just the companies and their leadership, but their clients and customers who have products on the boat. They want to be part of the program because they want the brand affinity associated with taking those steps. I'm wondering, would a passenger on a cruise ship feel the same way?
Sorry to interrupt, but I failed to get Ms. Rodriguez a slide showing all of the ambassadors that you reference, the importers, the exporters, the Port of Hueneme, hopefully the city becoming an ambassador. And the reason we're excited about the cruise ship industry wanting in the program and enrolling in the program is exactly what you just mentioned. Thousands of people on these ships, they want to know that they're on a clean ship. Right. And so we're excited to engage not just companies that import or export or entities that work with industry, but the public.
Yep. Good. Now, Angela, for you, how many bad actors do we have? One of the we have this list of compliance requirements that they must meet, whether it's water quality, air quality, how does that score? I mean, in terms of the numbers that we have, because I remember discussing earlier when we were talking about the program, that we would take a look at the performance of it and whether there are any problems associated with it. And I guess I'm asking, do we have bad actors? Are there those that flaunt the rules? And if so, do we take action to not allow them to come back? What do we do with that? And what is the nature of compliance now with, say, last year's participants?
So right now, as the recommendations stand, the only requirement was for the advanced wastewater treatment. So every ship that visits at this point does have that. The other ones were basically being monitored, and then with the recommendation that if we get to the cap of 20, we would start potentially kind of selecting the ones that are best practices, or following best practices. We haven't gotten to the point where we've had to prioritize, and as far as we know, they've all been following the vessel speed. In the past, it does say up to the captain's discretion, so in the past, we have had one ship that had to go faster for a medical reason with someone on board, but other than that, we haven't had complaints of any of them going faster. Typically, some of the nonprofit organizations like Channel Keeper will keep an eye out for that, but then now that we are partnering with the Blue Whales, Blue Skies, we'll also have access to the shipping speed information.
And speaking to the interest of the nonprofits that showed up in the environmental community, do we prepare, or why don't we prepare, or consider preparing a report? I mean, right now, the report card looks pretty good, and we're trying to build in more things to the program. So why don't we at least be able, if anybody inquires about the report, or we know who testified here, we send them that report. I mean, the environmental community was here, they were concerned about it, that we let them know that we're actually doing what we said we would do, and the performance has been good or bad, and we joined this program or whatever, just to keep the information flowing to them. And also the Chamber of Commerce, who was very concerned with any cap at all. And what we're doing is to say back to the Chamber is we're letting the market decide that. We've set some ground rules for being in our waters, and we have a limit of 20, but if it's only 15 people who want to abide by our rules as opposed to 20, that's a marketing decision. And I think this is a good program, and you ought to do a little report that brags about it, but also gives the facts. And if you can add to that the data that the sanctuary staff seems to be willing to provide, that would be great to add to that sort of report. So anyway, just a thought and observation. Thank you.
So right now, we're mostly compiling that information on the cruise ship database, so I just put that back up on the screen. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Commissioner McRae.
Thank you. I noticed that this is not scheduled to be an action item, but I also note that there's actually two actions that we could potentially take, and one is to support the Blue Whales the harbor becoming part of the Blue Whales Blue Skies program as an ambassador, or at least support that program. And the other is we might be able to provide our advice to City Council to pursue a guarantee policy for booked visits so that the charterers, the visiting ships as they schedule, feel more comfortable that they won't lose their spot because of a policy change that happens between the time they initially booked and the time of their visit. My first question is of staff, whether these things are possible for us to do tonight, and the second would be to look across the dais here for interest.
Commissioner McRae, from staff's point of view, that would be great. It can be a formal motion or just gathered opinions of the group, but a formal motion is always nice if you do want to take action on those two recommendations.
I'm very supportive of your recommendation there, Commissioner McRae. If you want to put that in the form of a motion after the questions have been answered.
And so I will, just moving to the motion fairly quickly here. The first one is our Harbor Commission support for the becoming ambassadors to the Blue Whales and Blue Skies program. So I would move that we would advance that support.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and we have a second. And actually, Commissioner McCray, can you just repeat the motion one more time, just so we
Yeah.
have a record on what we're voting on again?
I move that the commission support becoming ambassadors of the Blue Whales, Blue Skies program.
Great, thank you. We have a motion and we also have a second on that. Mr. Lopez, yeah, can you please give us a vote on that motion?
Yes, and this is a motion by Commissioner McCray, seconded by Commissioner Nelson, to support the commission becoming ambassadors to the Blue Whales, Blue Skies program. Commissioner Hymas?
No, yes.
Commissioner McCray?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Stanwyck?
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Cohen absent.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the commission on this item? Or any other deliberation?
I have a second motion.
I think, before we get to the second motion, can I maybe ask a question? I think, is it common for other harbors or ports to guarantee entry? Like what is, I think maybe the devil's a little bit in the details.
Commissioner Anderson, I don't think we're guaranteeing entry. I think there would just be some business certainty if a ship books with us, say 3 years in advance, and they meet all the criteria that we have laid out, that 2 years from now, we're not going to change our policy and cancel an existing booking. So I don't think we're saying that we're just going to say yes to more cruise ships. We're really just saying, can we create that business certainty to honor the bookings that we have already made? Just because the industry is really based on bookings that are multiple years out. And so I think that's what is in front of the Harbor Commissioner, is being recommended by the Harbor Commission.
I think for me, I just would like to see it defined maybe more than.
Right, so rather than winging it, I would look to staff for some advice as to how to couch this so that it actually makes sense and is something that could be acted on
We do
by
have,
city council.
we do have the letter of understanding that we give to the ships, and they sign it first, and then once we get that and have it all signed, we consider the booking or reservation process complete. So that happens 2 to 3 years in advance typically. So once that happens, that would basically be what we're trying to honor. And those are the ships that have already been vetted, have the advanced wastewater treatment systems aboard.
So as an example, Ms. Rodriguez had that graph up. We have ships scheduled out through 2029. There's kind of 15, 7 in a year, 8 in a year, 4 in a year, whatever it may be. They all have advanced water treatment systems. They meet the criteria that we've put forth to them. I think what we're saying is that in 2027, or that just once they have committed and booked, we're not going to cancel the existing ships. Right. We may stop booking new ships. We may go a different direction with our cruise ship program. But once we kind of honor a business deal, we'll keep that specific business deal. So if in 2027 the City Council or Harbor Commission decide no more cruise ships at all, it'd be nice to say, well, let's at least give the folks the business certainty planning now, because that is the fundamental concern that they're worried about, is that we're going to do an about face and do a 180-degree shift in 2 years from now, and so they're reluctant to book future visits.
I think for me, it's still the details. We get, we got the email recently saying we're still concerned about, I forget what disease it was, but for example, COVID comes up again, and let's say, or something similar in 2029 comes up, and we're saying that they've signed this tender, and now you can come, and we don't have a say in it necessarily, is what I'm understanding we're proposing, which, again, I think I would need to see, for me to get behind it, I'd need to see a little more clearer definition on what that looks like. A force majeure clause, maybe,
Yeah, I get it. I get where you're going. I didn't think the intent was for it to be this in-depth. I mean, if things like that happen, we rely on county health and, all sorts of other recommendations that are beyond our control. it was really just an idea to create some business certainty with the cruise line. So, but if there's some hesitancy, no problem. We can kind of retool it. But it was really just to kind of, honor a deal that we've made.
Yeah, I mean, I understand operating with uncertainty is the hardest environment to operate in. But I don't think, at least what I've heard or seen so far, I'd be voting to support it. I'm not saying I wouldn't in the future with a more detailed definition, or it's not an absolute no for me, but it would be right now.
You mean to address something like the hantavirus that recently became an issue?
That's right.
Okay.
As an example.
Right. Sure. But
So it strikes me that a policy like this would take some very, very careful thought. So I think I'm going to limit my motion to, I move that we direct staff to look for ways to provide more business certainty for vessels that have booked a visit at Santa Barbara Harbor, that they will ultimately have an opportunity to take that visit.
I'll second that. And this is Commissioner Stedman seconding the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Mr. Lopez, can you please reread the motion that was stated by Commissioner McCray?
Yes, this is the motion by Commissioner McCray, seconded by Commissioner Stedman, to direct staff to look for ways to provide more business certainty for vessels that have booked a visit at the Santa Barbara Harbor, that they will ultimately have the opportunity to take that visit.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak towards that motion? Okay, with that, we can do a vote, please.
Great. Commissioner McCray?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hymas?
Yes.
And Chair Stanwyck?
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Cohen absent.
Great, thank you. With that, do we have any other questions or comments from the commission regarding item number 6, the annual cruise ship program review? Okay, I don't see any other comments. I just want to make a comment. I really value, I think, all the time that went into this. I know cruise ships aren't going away anytime soon. And Santa Barbara, a few years ago could easily just said no and taken the easy way out. But we went to the public and we had a lot of public comments, a lot of pro cruise ships from business owners, and a lot of no cruise ships from environmentalists. We solicited opinions from some of these other boards, Channel Keeper, other local businesses, and I think we made a great compromise. But I just really, I think, value Santa Barbara taking a leadership role in this issue to, I think, we could provide to other ports. So thanks again to the Waterfront for implementing all of these and the presentation, Ms. Rodriguez. And kudos to Santa Barbara for being a leader in this. So thanks everybody involved. All right, with that, we can go on to department update. Item number 7, the Harbor Operations Report. I'll turn it over to the Waterfront and Mr. Aldridge.
All right, good evening, Chair Stanwyck, Harbor Commissioners, members of the public. I am Harbor Operations Manager Nathan Aldridge, and next I will be presenting this evening's Harbor Operations Report. So some good news on our mooring field expansion. Waterfront staff and just finished a lengthy permitting process, which includes working with California Coastal Commission, United States Army Corps of Engineers, California State Lands Commission, and the United States Coast Guard. Last week, the department received approval to contract with Castagnola Tug Services to purchase and install all the ground tackle and to fabricate the moorings, which is the last step before the project can finally begin. The mooring assembly and installation is slated to start around mid-June, with the project expected to take approximately 1 month. The goal was to install these new moorings by the summer of 2026, and I can report that Waterfront is happy that the expanded mooring area will soon be ready for our vessels. And up next, an update on our vessel insurance program. The Waterfront's vessel insurance requirement went into effect the first of this year, in January 2026. As a reminder, vessel insurance is now required to berth, moor, or anchor any vessel in the harbor district except for launched vessels, human-powered watercraft, or skiffs less than 15 feet in length. This includes vessels within the harbor as well as the anchorage and the mooring areas. So as of this month, over 88% of all required vessels in the harbor district have met this requirement, which is a fantastic level of compliance only 5 months into our new policy. I would especially like to thank Jeanette Przinski and my entire Waterfront administrative staff for working diligently for over a year to message out this policy to the public, often going out of their way to provide uninsured boaters with information on how to insure their vessels. Boaters and slip permittees have had over a year to comply with this ordinance since it was first announced, and the overwhelming majority of boaters do have insurance. So this past March, a slip termination warning letter was sent out to all slip permittees who have not provided proof of insurance. And next month, staff will send out a formal notice of slip termination to any uninsured slip permits, which could result in potential terminations for uninsured vessels in the coming months. It's important to remember the Waterfront chose to delay enforcement of our insurance requirement, aiming to be as lenient as possible. And ultimately, slip termination is our last and final resort in enforcing our municipal code and rules of the harbor. And last, and certainly not least in my operations report update, I'd like to give some details about a significant call from last week. So as most of you know, on Monday, May 11th, approximately 0700 hours, Harbor Patrol officers fielded a call from the United States Coast Guard requesting mutual aid for a reported fire on platform habitat, which sits approximately 10 miles south of the harbor. Within minutes, Harbor Patrol officers on boats number 2 and 3 initiated a response. So due to the dense fog, as you can see from the images here up on our screen, Coast Guard aircraft were unable to assist, meaning our officers would be responsible for providing the initial scene size up and to begin the fire attack. Boat 3 arrived first on scene, quickly followed by Boat 2, and first confirmed that all 26 personnel off the rig had been safely evacuated onto a nearby crew boat. The Harbor Patrol officers observed multiple sections of the rig involved in flames, with the source appearing to originate from the methane outlet. And after confirming that there was no rescue of personnel needed, both fireboats immediately started to attack the fire from both the north and the south side of that structure. And in the image here on your screen is of our new Boat 3. The bow monitor up forward and also the cabin monitor on the top of the vessel can put out in excess of 3,000 gallons per minute. You can sort of see our boat is about 36 feet long. Both of those streams are shooting about 70, 80 feet up in the air right there. So our fireboats worked for over 5 hours straight to put out multiple fires on the structure, and were able to prevent the fire from spreading further, potentially saving the rig and preventing disaster in several sections. And here, if I can get this to work, is a short video highlighting some of the fire attack.
Still no progress in suppressing the pressurized natural gas. Got Coast Guard and Ventura County boat 15 at scene, conserving their fuel to the good enough security to engage upon our departure. Looks like access is down here. That's all I got for now.
So it's sort of hard to hear from the dialogue, but the fire captain on scene was describing a little bit of that specifics part of the structure, named another asset that was on scene from Channel Islands that came up about 45 minutes after our boats were there. And they had been putting water on that section, you saw, to sort of keep that cool once they'd put the fires out on the other sections of the crew quarters or on the kitchen, ultimately to enable the engineers to come out and to secure the actual outlet itself too. And so this incident demonstrates the high level of training and preparation required by all of our officers when needing to respond to, quite frankly, the unexpected. The Waterfront's newest fireboat, which is Boat 3, was fantastic in fighting its first fire, and was earning praise from both our officers as well as both the partner agencies that we heard from the scene. Great, and with that, it wraps up our tonight's operations report, and I'm happy to turn it back over to Chair Stanwyck for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Aldrich, for the presentation and also for the video. That was very cool to see in them in action. All right, questions from the commission. Commissioner McRae.
Thank you, Chair Stanwyck. I have a question about your brand-new engine control system. Were you able to basically set it and forget it and have the boat stay in position? I noticed that the thrust of the water actually pushed the bow of the boat down by several inches, a lot of force.
Yeah, Commissioner McRae, Chair Stanwyck, it's a fantastic question. You're speaking of the dynamics of fighting a fire when you're operating a fireboat at what we say really 100 PSI is sort of the max that it can put out. And have you seen from the pictures of the streams? It's quite a lot of water coming out of that boat. So if you imagine getting a gallon of milk at the grocery store, as a point of reference, about 3,000 of those per minute is what that boat was able to put out, which is fantastic. It creates a lot of force. Especially in an unstable environment, you think about swell, think about wind direction, you think about windage of a boat that has a cabin. It's a lot to do if you're operating that. And the dynamics also of where you're aiming. If you're canting a little bit, and especially if you have two, you move it off, 5-10 degrees or so, you're going to change the dynamics of the vessel. So talking with the officers, they were able to kind of keep it set for where it was for a while and put water on there. Sometimes they do that and make a pass until they're kind of getting moved by the current a little bit. Another boat would sort of take its place and it would drift down a little bit and put water on it and then sort of go in that pattern. But just as an anecdote, we've had times when one of our vessels had engine problems, and you can pretty much drive the boat backwards just by using a fire pump. You can generate enough sort of thrust by that too. So it's quite a lot of water, and it's just another element that our officers have to be aware of in order to safely operate in that environment.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Stedman.
I would just like to give a shout out to Mark for keeping all these vessels in tip-top condition and ready to respond. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Commissioner Hymas?
Thank you. Was there any lessons learned from this fire incident? I mean, is there more like capital investments that are needed for the fire crew for the new boat? I'm sorry, if there needs to be maintenance done to the boat. I think the first thing comes to mind is the possibility of our channel reopening for offshore oil fracking, and if there's going to be more incidents possibly in the future, just want to, I guess, make sure that our fire crew is solid and ready to go if this happens again or if this happens to multiple platforms.
Yeah, Commissioner Hymas, Chair Stanwyck, another great question. I'm going to keep my answer sort of focused on sort of operational readiness. Number one, this is the first time I've ever, at least my career and knowledge, has ever responded to an event like this, and they're incredibly rare, thank goodness. Number two, to give you sort of a brief idea of what would go into a response like this, within half an hour, 45 minutes ago, or once the call went down, we had our harbor patrol, the new combined communication center, the dispatchers through the Santa Barbara County, obviously the United States Coast Guard, Santa Barbara City Fire Department, Santa Barbara County Fire Department, Los Angeles County Fire Department, Ventura County Fire Department, all involved in what became like a large incident. And so set up an incident command with all those different agencies. Myself, I didn't respond on the boat in my capacity, meeting with battalion chiefs, fire chiefs, talking about what this might be like for 12 hours if we couldn't put it out, 24 hours, 48 hours, if something else happened. I'd like to point out that this rig was not any type of oil. It was a methane gas producing rig. So that was one of the first considerations in terms of environmental protections too, and also of our crew. But once we had a call like this, we had that first boat was we call staging. Once we got on the radio and requested some additional resources for the nearest city fire department, so we had 3 firefighters go with our harbor patrol officer on the first boat. We had the second boat stage again for another close engine company that came, so 3 more firefighters from the city went on that boat. We had another officer come into the harbor to cover the harbor. And this is, quite frankly, what we train for. And after that event, a couple things will happen. Number one, we do, it's called an AAR, or after action review. Sometimes that can be really quick. It can be 5 minutes or so with all the agencies. Once we finished a call, everybody kind of will do a quick debrief, what went well, what we want to keep an eye on, what we want to work on. Some questions, that are fresh in our mind we'll discuss. And then generally that will happen again once, a couple weeks go by, and get some time to decompress, talk to the crews, and we'll ask these some questions. How do we need to respond to this in the future if this happens? If it were worse, what additional resources would we need? If we're an extended type of operation, how we're going to think about crew readiness. We're going to swap people out. We can't keep people fighting a fire out 10 miles south of the harbor for 12, 16 hours straight without swapping personnel, visibility. If it were the same situation and, the wind were blowing 35 knots and there were 8 to 10 foot swells in the middle of the channel, it'd be very different too. So all of those things go into it. So long story long, yes, I think we were well prepared for that. And I think it starts off coming back to what I think Vice Chair Stedman mentioned, and with Mark Stouter, for example, we have a full-time vessel technician that works on our boats. He knows them like the back of his hand. Before he leaves, going away on his weekend, to make sure every single boat is fueled, it's ready to go, because you don't know when something like this will happen, right? And so when it's time to go, we had a full tank. We had obviously our diesel tank, which is separate, that just fuels our fire monitor, was ready to fight a fire for many hours out there too. So I feel really, really good about our new fireboat as well. Even just kind of kicking the tires on its first real big call, I think it passed with flying colors. The platform was great to be able to take on that crew. And obviously you never want to have calls like this or situations like this, but they're all great learning tools. And we take notes, we save these in a folder and a file, and then, we pass this information down, and we drill with these types of things regularly. We drill with the Coast Guard, with their helo operations, if we have situations like this. But perfect example, the visibility was so poor they couldn't come out, so we had to be the eyes and ears out first on the scene too. But I felt really good about how our officers performed, and I think how all the different agencies cooperated in the field.
Commissioner Nelson?
I'm glad you acknowledged the good work of Jeanette. So 88% is a good number, but when you do the math, that means you could have 130 people that we would be issuing slip terminations to, and that's no small undertaking. And I guess can you give me a brief snapshot of how it would work and when it would come to us? And would it come to us in a lump of like 5, we'd have 5 or 10? If we've got 130, how would it come to, after a 6-month period or a 3-month period, would it actually come to the commission to take an action on a slip termination?
Yeah, Commissioner Nelson, Chair Stanwyck, no one likes the termination process. I'll just be quite frank with that. It's our last resort. It takes hours and hours and hours of staff time, to process this, and it doesn't happen as sort of the first option. This is the end of the line for a lot of these. And just to rewind back in 2024, when we started talking about this, the runway has been very, very long. And so if and when it does come to this termination process for some of these vessels, these individuals will have received multiple different, public meetings for insurance brokers to come volunteer their services. They've had 3-4 letters in the mail, telling them about how to get insurance, the process, websites, termination warnings, and so if it does come to this point, and like I said, unfortunately, but this is where we have to go with it.
Right.
And so to address your question about the quantity too, when we issued that letter as a 30-day notice, just talking timelines, there'll be a 30-day notice of termination will go out if a vessel is subject to this by June when we issue that. So it'll come up to, July 1st or so, and then the 1st of July, if somebody, comes into compliance, the overwhelmingly likely that, if they say, hey, the last, 11th hour, we have this, we got our boat insured, okay, great, but if not, we'll have to look at what that number actually does look like, and then also what's feasible for processing them. Some people may appeal, but I think it's going to be up to sort of me and also I think Director Wilshire too, talking to the city attorney. We were looking at this process too of requiring insurance and not be a subjective, hearing. We're going to hear 150 people say, I've lived here for 60 years and I'm a harbor community member and this is, give me another chance type of deal, and having, you who's sitting here listening to these stories and having to make a decision whether you should give somebody an extension or to not, or to waive the requirement for an individual based upon how compelling they are in a harbor commission meeting. It's a hard position to put you in, and that's something we'd like to avoid as well too, because this is one of those things where it's like you have it or you don't.
And my second one is, when did the Coast Guard show up? Did you guys basically keep water on that platform until they were able to show up, or were you literally able to extinguish the fire and then they came in just with a tanker or something and put it out? What?
Yeah, great question, Commissioner Nelson, Chair Stanwyck. Our boats, from my understanding, we were out there for in excess of 5 or 6 hours, putting water on that structure, doing a couple of things. One is knocking down all of the fires that had spread to different sections. Some of the pictures you could sort of see different color smoke, white smoke, black smoke, give you an idea of what was burning, in some of the crew quarters and on top of where that platform was too. We extinguished all of the fires that were outside of that free-flowing methane. So you imagine, taking if you remember those old hairspray cans from the 1980s, and shake them all up and light a match and flamethrower, and it just goes until the source is gone. Basically what was happening at a huge scale, right? So by the time our second boat showed up, and also the Ventura County, the Channel Islands Harbor Patrol boat showed up, they kind of took turns helping to keep that structure, I think, in that standard. And then it was a matter, I think, of trying to reduce any type of exposures for putting crew up on there to secure that valve. And so my understanding is that the rig and whoever, the company that operates the rig, had sent some people in to come in on their own vessel. And those engineers who had a working knowledge of that were the ones who came up to secure the valve on that rig, but they wouldn't have been able to do so unless we had made it safe for them to do that too. But so there were no city personnel were physically onto that rig in order to do that, but it would have burned indefinitely until that valve had been manually shut off.
And then finally, do we know where methane is a real volatile, flammable stuff. And like you can imagine the whole platform exploding if there was a methane ignited. Do we know where the methane is? So when you guys go out there again, because all these rigs are ancient. They're at the end of their lives. All of them are being taken down and decommissioned. Do we know what we're getting into, or is that something the Coast Guard knows? I'm just kind of curious, because methane can create a real dangerous situation, big.
Yeah, it's a great question, Commissioner Nelson, and I don't want to sort of speculate in terms of the cause of the fire and the logistics of that, but once again, there were no city, either fire personnel or harbor patrol personnel were on board of that rig too. And our job was to, number one, sort of, life, and made sure that everybody was off safely. We didn't need to effect a rescue. And then to do what we could at a hopefully safe enough distance to keep that fire contained until they came up with an operational plan to safely shut that off.
Okay, thank you, very good.
Commissioner McRae?
Yes, thank you. With respect to, first of all, I had my Gulf Safe card for some years, so because we worked around the platforms quite a bit doing scientific research. And so I know that it's not just methane, it's hydrogen sulfide, which is some really bad stuff. So on the one hand, it's good to get the fire out, but it's not so good to get it out with the gas still flowing. You really have to shut the valve off first if you're going to be safe. So it's good that that all happened in the right order. My question with respect to that is, was that flaring gas happening within the platform body itself, or was it coming off of the flame boom where it's actually designed to?
Commissioner McRae and Chair Stanwyck, once again, I don't really want to speculate. I wasn't aware of the specifics of that location in terms of how that fire originated, where it was starting. And so that, like I said, operationally, we tried to stay as far away we could from that, to be quite frank, when our vessels were stationed too. And that information that was going sort of behind the scenes with our incident command and the company and their engineers, we really wanted to make sure that whoever was going to go secure that, exactly what you were saying, knew what they were doing, and they knew how to do that as well. And I'd be very hesitant to put any of my officers at risk, until we knew exactly sort of what the fix was for them. So that was something that they handled.
Well, thank you for that. Super impressed. I'm sure it wasn't part of the design to be able to have a fireboat that could shoot water 300 feet in the air. The top of the wharf is nowhere near that. Good job on getting the right equipment. It was called to a task that it was never expected to have to be called to, and it performed. Super. So whatever that cost was, I think we just saw that it was well worth the investment. I have a question with respect to the mooring, if you could flip back to the first couple of slides there. Okay, yeah, that's the right one. So we have what was called the seasonal mooring over on the left-hand side, that one, that far west edge. Is that still seasonal even with the fixed moorings?
Commissioner McRae, Chair Stanwyck, as of now, as a courtesy, we've let mariners anchor in that location until we finished securing the permits and got our contract in place. And so once we do get work done, we will close that area permanently to free anchoring, and it will be just an extension of our mooring field.
So then the boats there, one of the main primary concerns we had was, people trying to live there on a permanent basis. And so I was just wondering what kind of safeguards we had against that kind of situation, so that it was actually used as intended, where people would come into the harbor and stay for a few days, maybe a week, and then they would be, they'd go on with their gunk holding up or down the coast. How is that being handled?
Yeah, and as part of the program, we're going to treat this as sort of a hybrid between our year-round mooring program and being assigned a slip. So if a boat or a mariner wants to get a temporary mooring in this section, they come in to do our accommodation dock, check in, show their insurance, their vessel registration, pay for a night, pay for a week or so, and then they would be assigned one of those moorings. And so part of our regular patrol for our vessel, the harbor patrol officers, just like in the slips, they'll monitor visitor slips. They would check that area probably several times a day to make sure that there weren't any other boats that kind of snuck in and grabbed a mooring, and that shouldn't be there, didn't belong there, and it to be a part of the area that we're going to monitor regularly.
Commissioner McRae, just to follow up, I think the question you were asking is how long are people going to be allowed to stay there? We're really implementing this as sort of a pilot project to see how people use the space. We haven't set any limits from a policy point of view, so we're hoping to bring that back to you all, the Harbor Commission, after we see some data, maybe a year's worth of how it's being used. But I don't think the intent is for all 17 of those for somebody to just pay us a yearly fee and be hooked up to it for the whole year. But as of now, we don't have any specific policy on how they're going to be used, so we're going to kind of play that by ear.
And also following Director Wiltshire, in our rate and fee structure, we set up a nightly, a weekly, and sort of a month mooring fee. with the intention that this will still be a seasonal mooring, from April 1st to November 1st, October 31st or so.
Thank you. That's specifically what I asked first. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Also, quick question, just out of the 12% that are not in compliance, are they communicating actively with the waterfront, or is there a specific reason that they are saying that they can't get insurance at this point?
Yeah, Chair Stanwyck, my understanding for the remaining 12-ish%, it could be even lower now. That was as of last week or so, and we still have insurance policies sort of trickle in every day. Most of those have been sort of radio silent. So anytime someone has come to us and say, hey, I'm having some trouble getting insurance, the immediate response is, here are A, B, C, D, different, underwriters, policy workers that, have worked with your type of vessel, or people like this, we'll send you in this right direction. We had someone who was dealing with it this last week, and within that day, within an hour, they were able to get insurance. So this time we're hoping that the people who haven't checked their mail are a little bit slow on this, or have a different boat partner who usually handle these things. We're getting all of those people. So by this time, if it does get to the point where we're in the low single digits of people who haven't gotten insurance, they're really the ones that we're not getting anything from too. So we're still to this day working with everybody we can who's responsive, and if we do have someone who comes in with some type of challenge, I don't know of one boater that has not been able to get insurance in some way who's come to us with that challenge.
Okay, thanks. And I guess, is there a plan for that percentage that are, the radio silent people? I mean, if they're terminated, do you guys take the boat and put it, I guess there's the Marina One bathroom is like that area right around there, and there's other spots. But is there a designated spot or a plan, I guess, you guys have for
Yeah, I don't want to speculate on how that's going to look. I think we should get there as a harbor. We want to give people enough leeway to make themselves whole and insure their vessel. So people, if they truly can't or are truly unable to, or if the boat is derelict, or if they're not absentee owners, then they have the opportunity to divest themselves of their slip. That can happen before this. But at the end of the day, we have to follow the rules that we put in place. We're giving a lot of leeway. We're coming up on June, July, before there'd be realistically termination letters. The policy went into effect on January 1st. So per municipal code and all of your recommendations, 60 days was when we were supposed to be enforcing it. So the intent is to be as lenient as possible, but eventually we are going to have to enforce it, and that enforcement mechanism is termination. And so if somebody is non-responsive over that period, completely non-responsive, and ignores termination letters, then yes, their vessel will be impounded, and we'll have to figure out what that looks like. The real hope is that number gets down to a manageable size.
Okay, great. No, I would imagine the people that are not responding are probably people with unoperable boats or not using the boat properly anyway. So that's good to know that there's a plan in place. Also, too, another quick question. I know that any boat that is at that anchorage also has to comply by the insurance requirement. I know the Harbor Patrol goes out there. Is there any general feedback from people who are transients, boaters who are coming through up the coast, down the coast, and they're in this anchorage permanently? Are they surprised generally about this insurance requirement, or do most of them have it? Just wondering about that kind of subset of boaters that are coming through Santa Barbara.
Yeah, Chair Stanwyck, that's another great question. You think about the sort of visitors and kind of coming back to this whole mooring situation. The vast majority of transiting vessels coming in do have vessel insurance. And we've had officers have contacted someone who've dropped anchor, last couple of weeks or so, and said, hey, looks like you're kind of new here. Do you know the lay of the land? And explain sort of how this works. Do you have your vessel insurance? They go, oh yeah. And inevitably they end up, pulling it out and direct them to go check in what resources are available here for skiffing on a dinghy. As of now, all of the anchored vessels in our mooring field and our anchorage are currently insured. Knock on wood, but that's one of our areas of biggest concern, especially with looking at these moorings and more secure ways to keep, boats anchored there. It's working, and the intention is to hopefully get, all of that area, under some type of regulation, so we're not having the sort of Wild West of, people just ditching boats out there and, and they end up on the beach.
Yep. Great, thanks for that. Commissioner Anderson, question?
Thanks. Regarding the insurance part of the presentation, our boat wait list is now, we're into the lottery system for the, so if there was let's say we get to 50 slips, for example, how many names are in the lottery at the moment? Could we possibly have on lottery slips?
The policy that we settled on was to honor the existing wait list that has been the wait list that has existed for the past decade or more for the first year. So if we were to come upon any slips right now, we would offer them to the wait list that exists as it is. As of the start of the year next year, our main policy change was to essentially refresh that wait list every year so that everybody in the community has an active chance to participate in it every given year. And so depending on timing, if we had slips that were to go to the wait list, it would either be to this group that exists right now, or it would be, if it went to next year, then it would essentially be open lottery to the community for those type of slips. And the other major change that we made was slips that are received on the wait list are now non-transferable. And so what that means is that somebody getting that slip would actively use it for boating. Once they were done with it, they would return it back to the waterfront and it would be issued to the wait list again. They wouldn't be able to sell that slip or transfer it, or so I think those are two big things that we cleaned up in advance of something like this that will benefit the community, the boating community, because if there is a scenario where we have 30, 50 slips to the wait list, that's a great new shift in the way that we do business. That provides a lot of slips openly. I mean, we did it in a small scale with the CUDA dock. This would be doing a similar action with recreational slips, and it would provide a lot of more ability to access slips at a low entry price point.
Yeah, the non-transferable clause sounds like we got that maybe in possibly just in time. Has anyone, out of curiosity, has anyone removed their names from the historical wait lists?
No, but it would be, we haven't offered them a slip to the current wait list, but anecdotally, everybody who's on the existing wait list has been offered multiple slips throughout the time that they've been on the wait list, and they have denied them. So there's a potential that they're on the wait list assuming they could have transferred it, and if we offer them an untransferable slip, they may not want to take the effort or time or money to put a boat in there, but we haven't gone through that process, so we don't necessarily know.
Great, thanks for the clarification on that. Any other commissioner like to speak on behalf of the department update? All right, thank you guys for the report. Thank you, Mr. Aldridge. Moving on to commission and staff communications. Is there any staff communications?
Yeah, we just had two. I was hoping that Mr. Aldridge could provide a brief update on the commercial fishing lottery that we went through last month on how that went out. It's a great news story.
Yeah, thanks, Director Wiltshire. And then sort of piggybacking off of Commissioner Anderson's last question, remembering the commercial fishing slip that went off the wait list, happy to report Randy Hughes, who was awarded that slip, with that next morning was down in our office with his landings, with his registration, with all of his permits, and was raring to go. That boat was in the slip that day, and the next day he was out fishing again. So every day I walk in that area, and that boat's gone or he's coming back in. So it's a great success story of someone who I can tell is very grateful to have that slip space and is actively using it for its intended purpose.
That's great news.
And one other update, so City Council reviewed the FY27 budget for all enterprise funds on Tuesday. They were supportive of the waterfront in general. There were a few questions pointed mainly at clarifying future federal dredging and how that is clearly a potential burden for the waterfront. They made some mention that recognizing that burden shouldn't be entirely on the waterfront. So it was nice to see that if they realize that as a liability, if we cease to get federal dredge funding, that could end up a hit on the general fund, not only the waterfront's budget. And expressed support for the 30-year adaptation plan and had some questions, kind of big picture questions about funding avenues for these long-range resilience projects that get up into big dollar amounts. So, but that was the only kind of waterfront-specific questions they had for the citywide enterprise funds.
Sounds good. Thanks for the updates. Any commission communications? Commissioner McRae.
Yes, thank you. I just wondered if there was an update on the budget proposal that that you submitted to City Council.
Yeah, that's what I was just speaking about. So we reviewed our budget at our Harbor Commission last meeting, and the City Council reviewed the general fund budget, I believe, a week ago at their council meeting, and then they, just last Tuesday, they reviewed all of the enterprise funds throughout the city, which Waterfront is one of those. And so they reviewed our FY27 budget proposal, and the only questions they had were pertaining to dredge funding and the adaptation plan.
And so nothing on the parking?
Nope, nothing.
Great, thank you.
Any other commission communication? Oh, Commissioner Hemis.
Thank you. Is there any, like a quick update about the swap meet that happened this weekend at the harbor, or last weekend at the harbor?
Yeah, the nautical swap, long running. So I believe we had upwards of 40 vendors, pretty reasonable turnout. It all went well. So there was a general positive response from the vendors, and yeah, it was kind of business as usual. Slightly less vendors than previous years. Don't have anything to attribute that to, but yeah, there were slightly less vendors, but from what I heard, it was a great turnout.
I wasn't able to make it, but is there like food vendors that are also there, or is it just?
Really, the intent is to give the liveaboard, slipholder, our kind of waterfront stakeholders an opportunity to essentially have a garage sale. And so that's how it all came about. We've been noticing more and more that there are like out-of-town vendors coming. So kind of random stuff is starting to show up. People coming up from LA to Venn, looking at it more of like a swap meet. But no, it's not like a kind of a food vendors or food trucks, that sort of thing. It's really kind of dedicated to nautical swap meet type thing.
Would that be possible next year, just to kind of build out what this is and possibly bring in more revenue with food vendors? And
yeah, it's potential. The sustainability department is actually spearheading an effort for a community-wide garage sale that takes place in June. And so we're possibly thinking of piggybacking on that for our next cycle to kind of make more out of the nautical swap, and that day, kind of use it as a citywide day and have a waterfront component of that and host something in the harbor that might be a little bit bigger and more meaningful.
Sweet. Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
One last question from me. I was in the harbor this afternoon. I noticed there's a large boat, maybe 50 or 60 feet, was at the Harbor Patrol slip-in area, and I thought it was Harbor Patrol members on the boat, kind of walking around and looking underneath the boat and kind of sniffing around. I'm just curious, any idea what that was or what they may have been doing on it, even if it's not that particular instance, what they'd be looking for on a boat that they would bring in and check out?
Yeah, Commissioner Anderson, Chair Samick, I believe this one, a vessel that's part of our surrendered or abandoned vessel exchange program, or a SAVE program, used to be the VTIP program. This boat was voluntarily turned in, and we're going to end up disposing of that vessel. Once again, we had, 5, 10, 15 years ago, we had some upwards of dozens of these boats were abandoned out in, speaking of the anchorage areas, the first ones that break loose going on the beach and turning into a environmental disaster. And so we've been really aggressive in trying to contact people who look like they want to get out of boating and have a boat they're kind of in over the head and they don't really know what to do with. It's part of that grant that we do get from the state of California, from the Department of Boating and Waterways. So I believe that one of those vessels that you're probably talking about was that we're prepping that vessel. Mark Stouter here too, with some of our crew and Harbor Patrol officers for disposal.
Great, thanks for the update on that. Any other commissioners? All right, we can move on to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? All right, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.